On this week's episode of Comics and Controllers, we talk about Guardians of the Galaxy and why you should go see it, because it's one of the best Marvel movies that they've done to date. We also talk about these new streaming services that all these video game companies are coming up with, and why they're terrible, and why we should be angry and upset about them. All that and more on this, episode 27, Guardians of the Stream. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Comics Controllers. I'm Kyle, joined by my co-host Steven.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, Steven. So let's go ahead today and let's talk about a movie.
Which movie, Kyle?
We're going to talk about the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, a good movie.
Yeah, a movie that somebody said they didn't think was going to be good.
And I am ready to take my
Eat crow.
punishment. Yeah, I'm going to eat some crow because I will be the first to admit if you haven't listened to previous episodes, I did not like the idea of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Even when the photos were coming out and everything, I was not remotely interested. And part of that was because I'd never read the comic, except for like a few one-shots and stuff, until that first trailer came out. And they released that first trailer, for those of you who don't remember, had the Hooked on a Feeling song.
Yep.
And it was really good, but even then I was still a little worried, like, oh, it might be a little too comedy heavy, it might be a little bit too goofy. But the more I saw the characters and the backgrounds, and I love science fiction, so I was like, well, I'm at least going to go try it, you know?
Yeah.
And I got to say, I was just wrong all around, because honestly, not to blow my load too early here, but I think it may have been my second favorite Marvel movie ever.
Yeah, it's easily near the top for me. It's top 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some spoilers here, but not a whole lot. We can avoid, I think, most of them to talk about the movie. But the interaction between the different characters, I felt like you kind of understood that all these people, all these main characters had these situations going on. They were all kind of messed up. And like they even say in the movie, we're all losers. You know, but it's because they've all lost something and they're all trying to find it or reclaim it or whatever, and it brings them together. And they're all different enough that they all kind of really work well together. You know, you've got Rocket. I'll say Bradley Cooper doing the voice of Rocket was way better than I expected. I didn't think it was going to be that good.
He gruffed his voice a little bit more, and I'm not sure if that's something he actually did or something they did in post, but if you had not told me that was Bradley Cooper, it probably would have taken me the entire movie to figure out that was Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I didn't recognize it as him. I mean, the only reason I knew is because I knew in advance.
Right.
I thought Batista was really good as Drax.
As a wrestling fan, I'm amazed.
Somebody I know, another wrestling fan, said, like, now if he could only act that well in the stage. Or in the wrestling ring.
Batista's not horrible. He's just sometimes he comes across really flat. But I think they really found a character that his personality fit well with. And James Gunn is supposed to be a very good director, so maybe you throw in that he's getting good direction.
Yeah. And it was a very well written script. Like the lines are really good. Even a character like Drax, who's very serious and deadpan, he still had some of the best one-liners in the movie.
Yeah, the one, and it's in the commercial, so this isn't a spoiler, but the one where he's talking about, it won't go over my head, my reflexes are too fast.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. And then, was it Zoe Saldana as Gamora?
Yeah, she was great.
She was good, but I really felt like they didn't, that didn't feel like Gamora to me. Because Gamora is supposed to be the greatest assassin in the universe.
Yeah.
I didn't really think she was that great at anything. She wasn't bad.
So you didn't think that they portrayed how awesome she was enough?
I think she got downplayed a bit compared to some of the other people.
Sure.
Like,
and a lot of her whole backstory, like, okay, every character has their interesting little backstory, and there's these huge themes of, like you said, loss and sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And hers really was, unfortunately, completely tied to who her father was. So I think they could do more with her, and that's why I'm glad that they already announced, hey, we're doing a second movie, because I want more of these characters now.
Yeah.
And she's a good example of someone whom, when they do the second one, I really hope they give her more to work with.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot more that can be done with that character, but I think they really didn't know what they needed to do with her in this one, and probably in the editing and stuff, they realized certain characters shine better than others, and I think she got edited down a bit.
Right.
She was still prominent, of course. She still had some major moments, but I think they kind of took some of her shine away when they decided to highlight Groot and Rocket and Drax, and of course Star-Lord.
Yeah, well, there's so many good characters there, and okay, so you just mentioned the main cast. That's fine, but look at like a character who John C. Reilly played.
Nameless Nova Corps guy.
I totally just blanked his name. He has a name because he's the one who in the comics dies and gives Ryder the Nova powers. Just blanked on his name.
Or you even have Yondu, who is played by
Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker, and I didn't expect much out of that character, but wow, I really liked it. Now, it was a different take on that character.
It was a completely different take on that character, because when I went in, I was like, but he used to be one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but
and he had a mohawk, and and he had like a bow and arrow he's really good at. But I like the way they changed him. I thought it worked better.
The way that the changes to his weapon were awesome. I mean, it still kind of works very similar. He still in the comics used to whistle to change the direction of his arrows, but the John C. Reilly thing, the reason I brought that up is because you have a character who is literally on screen for 5 minutes total, but they give him a personality. They find a way in that 5 minutes. You see him with his family. You see him, starting to kind of trust these people who he thinks are criminals. Like, they really give him little personality quirks in a very brief amount of time. And that really makes me glad to see a movie like this. And I want to see more stuff like that in Marvel movies.
Yeah. Now, we didn't talk about Chris Pratt, who played Star-Lord.
Yeah, who definitely has much more of my respect now.
I've never really seen anything Chris Pratt had done, which really the only other thing, he's done a lot of war movies, where he's been serious characters. And he's always been kind of like a background person, not a major person. Yeah. And then he does Parks and Recreation, where he plays Andy Dwyer, who I'd never seen the show. I'd seen clips and was like, that looks funny, I should watch it. After seeing him in Guardians of the Galaxy, I've basically been like just watching Parks and Rec back to back. So like I'm already up to like season 5, and I'm like, he is amazing.
You're past me. Yeah,
I was like, he's great. I mean, it's the same. He's funny in both, but it's a different kind of funny. So you can kind of see that like he's not just the same type of comedian or comedic actor. He actually has levels to his acting on that.
And a lot of people were very concerned because before Guardians came out, he was announced as the lead for the new Jurassic Park movie. And a lot of people weren't sure about that, but I think with his success in Guardians, people will ease up on that.
Wow, people still care about Jurassic Park movies?
The first one was amazing.
The first one was in like 1990 something.
You are correct.
That's like the first one was amazing. Yeah, like over 20 years ago it was amazing. Why do people still care? We don't have to have 100 sequels to everything.
I agree with you, but it's not my decision whether they make the sequels or not. I mean, I hope this new one's good. I like Jurassic Park. I love the idea of it. I've read, I read, but I don't read a ton of novels, and I've read both Jurassic Park and The New World, and I really like both books, and so I enjoy that franchise.
Fair enough, but yeah, I think he'd probably be good in it. Now, whether or not it's a good movie, that's up to other stuff. So we'll see on that. But he was great in this.
He killed it in a lot of scenes. Like this opening scene, after his backstory, is of him playing a song on his Walkman and walking through this area, and he's just kicking these rats and knocking them around, and he's a very good physical comedian, but he really just owns a lot of the scenes he's in, and he, a lot of his stuff is in the trailers, so you see kind of the big, but I'm Star-Lord, man, but he just does so much else well in the movie as well. He's not a one-sided character.
Yeah, I agree. And he was really good with it. And I was glad that they got him to play that character.
Yeah. I don't
Just-
know whose idea it was to be like, you need to get Chris Pratt for this, but I'm glad they did it.
Yeah. Now, another thing, there's a lot of kind of first in the Marvel Universe for stuff that we get to see here. Like, we have seen Thanos before, but this is like the first time we really get to see Thanos.
Yeah, and to hear him talk with
And to hear him talk, yeah.
Josh Brolin's
And to see him,
magnificent voice.
and to see how everybody's pretty much terrified of him.
Yeah. Why couldn't I get more Thanos? That was like, if I had very, very small complaints about this movie, but that's one of them. I wanted more Thanos.
I didn't know Thanos was going to be in it. I didn't know who the villain
really?
was, truthfully. I knew Nebula was in it, so I figured she was probably going to be like a main villain. I didn't know, and I knew Ronan was in it, but I didn't know to what level he was going to be in it.
Yeah, and one of the extended previews, you saw the Chitauri guy, the one when what Ronan does to that Chitauri guy was just hilarious. I was laughing.
Yeah. But so, yeah, it was pretty awesome when to get to see, Thanos, Josh Brolin, multiple times.
Right.
So it's cool to kind of see that we know what they're building up to in their universe.
Well, the big question now is he going to be the Avengers 3 villain, or is he going to be just a bigger Guardians of the Galaxy 2 villain?
I would hope it'd be Avengers.
That's the rumor, and maybe we'll even get a Guardian or two in Avengers 3. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, because they haven't actually said to date, oh, Infinity Gems, until this movie. Like,
Right,
something
sure.
is actively called an Infinity Gem.
Yeah. But now it really makes sense if they want to go back and say the thing in Loki's staff was the Mind Gem and the Tesseract was the Blah Gem. It makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. Well, and then there's another one. There's another gem
The
that showed
Ether.
up.
Well,
Yeah,
we
the
know
Ether.
we know the Ether because of the end of this last scene in Thor 2. We know that's an Infinity Gem.
Yeah.
And they refer to the Tesseract as an Infinity Gem, or as one of the items, which make it Infinity Gem. Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool to see, they're building up, and I think Marvel's got pretty good groundwork they've got laid to this long line of things. Now, my hope is that they don't really start, because I don't know if you saw this, but somebody posted somewhere the next 10 years of superhero movies, like dates and stuff,
Yeah,
and it gets to the point where it's like, holy crap. I mean, there are things they have on there, they don't even have names. It's like, unnamed Marvel superhero movie.
Sure,
it's like,
yeah.
What?
That's common though. That's not.
It is. But there's still a lot.
When they started doing Spider-Man, and I mean back when the Raimi Spider-Mans, they were still doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's a ton, and I think it's honestly too many, because I was looking at the ones for 2015, and I was like, no, that's cool. And then you get to like 2016, 2017, and you're starting to count that. Plus, add in Star Wars is going to be coming out with a movie each of those years also. I was just like, maybe we've already gotten into the oversaturation of this market. I think this might be killing it.
Yeah. And to mention Star Wars, someone made a good comment about Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy to me. And they said, I've never been a Star Wars fan. I've never really been a big space person fan, because it always just seems so bleh.
Yeah.
There's all this stuff going on, but everybody just seems so flat. He's like,
I think they said stiff, if it's the same comment.
Yeah, it is. It seems stiff, but Guardians of the Galaxy was different. There's comedy in there, and these actually seem like real people. Like, just because you're from outer space doesn't mean you have to be somebody with a stick in your butt.
Now, one, I appreciate this comment. I believe I even liked it. But two, I will say the comedy to me was one of the things that almost threw me off in the movie. And they did it perfectly. Like, it's executed almost perfectly. The only time that I actually questioned whether it was too much or not was the final scene, the big confrontation on the planet with Ronan and Peter Quill.
Really? At that point, it was so ingrained in me.
No, and that's what I'm saying. They did it so well, but that was the only moment where I almost stepped outside of the movie in my mind and was like, is that too much?
No, for me, the only time I almost did it was in the very beginning when he was doing the scene you talked about, dancing around with the rats. I was like, hope this isn't going to be that in your face. Yeah. And it kind of got down. I mean, it still was there, but it wasn't. It became part where I was accepting of it. So, like, when that scene you're talking about happened, I was just like, okay, this is the character. He would do
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
That's
and
how
it
he
made
handles
sense.
bad situations.
And it made sense. It wasn't like that's one thing I actually did want to talk about this movie, because the comedy, I think, didn't overstep the line. I think it hit it just perfect. But everything in this movie makes sense. James Gunn took a classic formula. Everything that's really important in this movie is in the beginning of the movie and in the end of the movie. Without trying to ruin some stuff, the scene where in the beginning she says, "Hold my hand," and it comes back at the end.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you see at least twice what the Infinity Gem can do to people who touch it or to things around it. Actually, I think you see it 3 times. So at the end, when all that stuff happens, it makes sense. There's nothing needs to be explained.
Yeah.
The thing with the leg and the eye, with Rocket wanting the stuff, it's a recurring joke that makes sense, that doesn't need to be explained again. And I think that's a very classic movie formula. It's like in the movie Aliens, if you know the big last scene they have with the power loader. Well, in the beginning of the movie, you saw the power loader. You saw what it was going to do. In the beginning of the movie, they talked about how the engines could explode and what it would do, and that happens at the end of the movie. You know, so this was a good setup.
But yeah, I was gonna say it's good. It's not like, because sometimes you'll see that in movies and you're like, okay, obvious, this is gonna somehow play out.
Sure.
But in this movie, those things, although they were reoccurring, I didn't expect them to be major things of the plot or lead to things happening. But when they did, I'm like, oh yeah, that's, it makes sense.
And
so like you said, it was done really well.
Yeah, and you can tell they were straight up paying tribute to some other movies. There's a lot of stuff, like the name of the ship, the Milano, is based off of Alyssa Milano, because it was either the writer or James Gunn or whoever had a crush on Alyssa Milano when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. I can't remember. And then the first scene where Peter Quill is like looking at the orb is straight out of Indiana Jones. If you put the picture of Indiana Jones looking at the thing from the beginning of the first movie, and then Peter Quill looking at the orb, they look like the exact same image.
Yeah, and Peter Quill's from the last time he was on Earth was in the 80s, so all of his references he makes are 80s references, and both of those are 80s references, so it fits.
Yeah.
And then there's just some stuff too with that I thought was really good, because it showed that they kept that stuff in mind. Like, they're not making modern day references and things like that, because he would have no clue, and none of these other people would either. And even some of the references he makes, well, actually, most of the references he makes, other people are like, what?
Right.
Like, he talks about Footloose, and they're like, I don't know, what is this? And he talks about, like, Kevin Bacon being a hero.
The great Kevin Bacon.
The great Kevin Bacon. So...
James Gunn apparently is friends with Kevin Bacon, so I want Kevin Bacon to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
He's been in a Marvel movie.
He was in a Fox movie using Marvel characters.
That's what I mean. It's a Marvel movie.
Right.
No, Sebastian Shaw.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I want him to be in the Marvel universe, the actual Marvel continuity universe.
So, but yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a kindness and go see it, because it was good.
Yeah, there's 2 more things I need to address really quick here. The soundtrack was amazing. I really liked it. It works so well with a lot of different scenes in the movie, and it's comprised mostly of mid to late 70s music. And it makes sense because his mother made the tape for him, so that would have been the music that she was really digging. Because at first I was like, why isn't it 80s music? That's when he was on Earth. But he didn't make the tape. His mom did.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. One of the first things I did when I got home was find the soundtrack and listen to it. And the soundtrack's probably not going to be for everybody, but one thing I'm kind of hoping is to get some people who, especially younger people who have maybe never heard these songs before, because they're all really good songs. So, good job on them for that. 2, when I got home, after work, I was really excited about the movie. I kind of wanted to see it again. It was that good. And there's very few times I'm like, I want to go to the theater and see that movie again.
Yeah.
But I watched the trailer again, and I have kind of a weird question here for you, Kyle, but I noticed something, right? So in the trailer, there's this whole scene with Gamora taking her shirt off and has the green side boob moment.
Mm-hmm.
Was that in the movie?
I think it was, but I think it was slowed down in the trailer. Like, I think in the movie, at one point, he walks in on her changing, and it's like a quick, turn around, and then it's like, oh, sorry. Because I remember that happens. Like, I think it was in the prison.
Maybe it was in the prison.
I think it was in the prison when they're all changing into their they're all
Yeah,
getting
maybe.
blasted with stuff and changing. I think that's where it's from, but I think it was slowed down dramatically in the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing that, and there were a couple of the shots from space shots that I couldn't see. By the way, I'm picky on my space movies, and this one did really well.
Mm-hmm.
The visuals were stunning. When they go to nowhere, I thought it looked great.
There were a lot of Easter eggs like that too. Like I
Oh,
was
sure.
surprised they had Nowhere in there. I was surprised to see Cosmo the dog in there.
Yeah, because he's actually the head of security on Nowhere now.
Yeah, and then I was also surprised to see the closing credits,
Right.
the after credits scene. That cracked me up.
I will say that you told me that when you went and saw the movie, you thought it was only you and maybe a couple other people that got the closing credits.
I'm pretty sure it was, because most other people were like, huh?
So when we went to go see it, we went to a midday show. There were probably maybe 20 people total in the theater, maybe 30. And I'd say it was kind of even, almost like half of them laughed. You know, because I caught it because I've seen the movie. I was like, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
And then there was definitely like half of them were like, huh? Like,
I mean,
what?
I don't think that character's been in a legit comic in years, or had his own series for years. Like, he's been in something, but
Yeah.
it was like a couple
He was in
issues.
Civil War, and he was actually in Guardians of the Galaxy not that long ago.
And he was
but
in
it-
the
but like you said, it
Marvel
was-
Zombies at one point.
Yes, but these are cameos. I don't think he's had his own comic in
Since the 90s at best. If even
sure.
before then.
Yeah,
I mean, his
yeah.
villain was in some Deadpool stuff reoccurring in the 90s, and because he was Deadpool's psychiatrist.
Oh yeah,
Dr.
that's
Bong.
right. I totally forgot about that. You're right.
Yep. And for those who don't know who Dr. Bong is, he's not a guy who smokes weed. He has a bell for a head and a clapper that, you ring a bell with for a hand. And he just calls himself Dr. Bong.
I had actually totally forgotten about that. Wow.
So if you know who Dr. Bong is, then you know who we're referring to at the end. If you
Right.
don't, then you need to go see the movie and stay
also-
until after the credits.
Right. Also, when you hear this character speak, I knew that voice, and I had to go home and look it up, and I was pleasantly surprised by who voiced that character. So
Yeah, I didn't recognize it. I didn't know until I read it somewhere. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
there are a lot of other small Easter eggs, like Nathan Fillion voices a character in the prison. I'll let you
Didn't
figure out who.
realize that.
Yeah. James Gunn and his brother are in multiple scenes. Like, he's one of the Ravagers or whatever they're called. And also there are two guys with helmets on at the beginning. That's James Gunn and his brother. There's a lot of little other stuff.
Well, there's also some Marvel stuff, too, like Adam
Right.
Warlock's Cocoon somewhere in there.
Yeah. When
The
you
collector's
get to
room
the
is
part of the
full of
collector,
stuff.
right?
Yeah. So just keep your eyes out when you're in that part, because you'll see a ton of stuff in the collector's room.
Agreed.
But so yeah, I know the comic book movie scene's getting kind of crazy. There's a lot of them out there, and Marvel just got the rights back to several more characters.
Right, and a lot of those characters, I think, if these Netflix series end up doing well, we're either going to see them joining that cast or getting their own Netflix series, or
Yeah, because who do they get? They got Blade,
Ghost Rider,
Ghost Rider, and Punisher.
Daredevil, and Punisher. And
They already had Daredevil.
Well,
but they
here's
got Ghost Rider. The ones they
Yeah.
just got back were Blade, Ghost Rider, and Punisher. But they
And
had
that's-
Daredevil because he's in the Netflix series.
Right, that's not exactly accurate. And the reason I mentioned Daredevil is because Daredevil was the beginning of all this about 4 years ago. They've been
Yeah.
working on getting these characters back in slow returns for around 4 years. And so
Yeah.
like they had Punisher back about a year and a half ago, but they just really didn't talk about it because they were still doing all these other deals. And part of this is that these companies that had the rights to these didn't want to pay to keep them, because not only do you have to pay, but you also have to do a movie with these characters every X number of years. And so Marvel has been kind of making Will's deal, and it's like, hey, we'll give you this amount of money, go ahead and let the contract expire.
Well, yeah, and these studios probably did cost benefit analysis to see, like, is it worth it to pay for this amount of money to keep this character, and then still
Right.
to make a movie? Like, are we going to make enough money on it? And there have been movies for all of these, and the last several movies they've done for all of them, they probably didn't make money. Like, I mean, I doubt the last Punisher movie, although I enjoyed it, made enough money to support them paying for the character and making another movie.
I
Same
know-
with Ghost Rider and Blade.
I can tell you this because I just did research from that movie on another article. It made enough money to pay for the movie, and that was about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So I would feel remiss if I didn't mention that they've already begun talking about. Who knows if this is just Wesley Snipes or what, but it looks like there are actually rumors they want to work on a new Blade movie. So,
yeah, I'd heard that.
Well, this could be good, and I'm a huge Punisher fan. I would love to see what the Marvel Studios, especially under the direction of Kevin Feige, could do with a Punisher movie.
Agreed. So there you go, Guardians of the Galaxy. Go check it out. It's really good. Probably one of the best Marvel movies they've done. Easily.
And this is a great film for even if you've never seen any other Marvel movies.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, oh, I need to go watch all these movies to see Avengers. No, you can just go in. You don't have to have any background. You don't even have to read the comics. They get really good descriptions and explanations for all the characters and stuff.
And now that I have seen it, I kind of do want to go read at least some of the Bendis run for Guardians of the Galaxy. So,
well, cool beans. So on from Guardians of the Galaxy to I don't want to say it's a new thing that's going on in gaming that these companies are doing, but it's something that's become, I don't know, it's like it's picking up steam.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. We've talked about it before, PlayStation Now, which is the kind of buyer, like it's like a subscription service and you can download so many games based on it that Sony wants to do. Well, EA wants to do one too. EA Access, I think that's what it's called.
Right.
And the thing with both of these is that the real question is are they going to be worth it? Because you're basically renting games. So, like, are the fees that you're paying to rent these games worth what they're charging you for the games that you're going to get? Now, Steven was telling me before, we were kind of talking about this before the show, that these kind of stem from another service that used to be around. So what was that service?
Most people accredit it all starting with OnLive.
Okay. And OnLive was basically it's really weird to think about what it was, but it was a cloud gaming service where they would have a computer in their office somewhere, and you basically pay to play games on their computer. So you didn't have to have a good computer to run it because you're streaming the game to your computer or your tablet and just playing it with a controller or keyboard.
Right.
And OnLive did okay. I think there's a lot of legal kind of problems they had with it. It's still around. You can go to the website and see it. But a lot of what it does now is more of cloud enterprise type stuff.
And my brief experience with it was they did a free weekend where you could sign up and get like a free 48 hours or whatever. And I played, I believe, Tomb Raider off of their service. And other than it having a lot of lag, it was a good idea with poor execution.
Yeah, I know. It's like all the people I know, because I knew a guy who was beta testing the iPad app for it, and he said it plays and there's lag, but it's not system lag, it's hardware. It's like connectivity lag. So it seems like their servers probably weren't really designed to handle it, or they're being throttled by the cable companies, which is probably a good chance too.
Very good chance.
And from that, we've had these other companies come up with their ideas. So like the PlayStation Now one it's old games and new games and stuff like that. And the basic premise is that you could rent a game for like 90 days and it's about $50 for 90 days. Now, that seems like a ripoff to me.
Yeah. Just go buy the game at that point.
I mean, if the game's going to be $50 and if the game's 60, which is what most of them are now, and you're going to pay 50, why just not pay the extra 10 and then be able to resell the game or something? And then you get into the issue of downloading a game on a hard drive, and you're going to run out of hard drive space eventually. And you got the issue of how long is it going to take me to download this damn game? Am I going to spend 2 of those 90 days downloading? Because, they have me throttled for whatever reason. Yeah,
the guys on Inside Gaming Daily, which is part of Machinima, they did something similar where they, were testing the service out so they could tell people about it. And there were a couple different things that they, kind of said that I thought was interesting. Is one, they had problems downloading. Now, hopefully this will get fixed eventually. But that's a very good point you just made that, if you're doing the 90-day thing, that's one thing. But what if you're just paying for 4 hours? They have a lot less time period. And some people thought originally it was going to be 4 hours of played time, but it looks like it's 4 hours real time.
Yeah, and then some of them won't be downloaded. Sometimes you just stream the game, but that's still problems. Like, there's been discussions of streaming with Netflix and how companies, it's obviously, are throttling you for doing this.
Right.
And, like, people will do, VPNs, and when they VPN, suddenly their Netflix is 100 times better because, Comcast or Time Warner doesn't realize who's doing it. And so what happens with these games? Like, oh, I'm streaming this game. Suddenly the lag is so unbearable, I can't even play the games because somebody's throttling me.
Right.
And now you paid $50 for this, and you've only got 90 days to play it. That seems like it just be infuriating.
No, agreed.
And that's why I think a lot of these companies, they want to go completely digital, but they can't because of that. What's even worse is they want to go completely digital and still charge you $60 for a game.
Yeah. And we've talked about, I know this is getting off subject slightly, but we've talked about the other things too is what's going to be available. Because when PlayStation Now was originally introduced as an idea, the big selling point for me and a lot of other people is like, oh, you can go back and play these PS1 and PS2 games. Well, right now,
it's all new stuff, isn't it?
PlayStation Now is just PS3.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but when I looked at EA's service, and I realize I'm not the target audience for EA stuff because mostly what EA does is, Call of Duty and Battlefield and sports games.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So right now, just mentioned the PlayStation Now again. It's not just games that Sony are making. They've got deals with other companies for games and stuff. Not all the companies, but some other companies. So when EA announced their deal, Sony said we're not going to be a part of that because it's just not a good deal.
Right.
And EA is basically charging the same thing to have access to their games that Sony's doing, but it's less games. And like you're saying, it's all sports stuff for the most part, or Battlefield. So if you don't play Battlefield or like sports games, you might get maybe a game every couple months.
Yeah, and there are a couple other things in there, but not much. That's the majority of it.
Yeah, and it's just, I think this is really a bad sign if that's what... It's one thing if, like, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony want to do these, subscription plans where it's, pay $20 a month and you have access to old games and maybe a couple new ones and stuff like that. The libraries increase as time goes on. Because then it's like, I have access to all the games on the Xbox or all the games they got rights to on the, PlayStation. But
right.
The moment it's a single company doing it, oh my God, you have limited yourself so much. Oh, sweet, I could go play Madden 2001. Who gives a damn? Why would you want to play a game from like 2001 that's a football game? It changes every year.
Here's the thing. EA is one of the biggest companies. They have a ton of franchises. They have a library that would probably be pretty impressive. But like you said, well, that's cool. But what if you just aren't a big fan of the majority of stuff they do? That service is just not going to be good for you. And I don't know. I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this.
I agree. There has to be some kind of better way. Like, people were saying, why just not make it just $20? $20 a month. And then you can download or stream old games and then get access to new games. Maybe you don't get all the games immediately when they're brand new. If you're a person who wants, like, I want the game the day it comes out, this might not be good for you. But maybe if you're willing to wait a couple months, then you could get an access to some of these games.
Right.
And then that still is, their company's still bringing in $240 for each person that does it.
Another thing is, too, and I hate to harp on this, but, like, what if I live in an area where I have, like, really bad, what if I have Cox cable? No,
like most people in America have terrible internet. Right. America is like 27th or 28th in internet speed.
Yeah, so. Something like that. And the thing is, like you were talking about, not all of them are going to be downloads. It's not like, I just have to wait for this download and I'll eventually get to play it. Some of it's going to be streaming service.
Yeah, but how many times have you watched YouTube and you sit there and wait for it to buffer?
And that's my point. Like,
or it stops because it doesn't do it.
Why am I going to pay for a service that's going to just annoy me more than be entertainment?
I agree. I think there's a basic good idea behind these, just like on live, but I don't think that they're really thinking it through. Mm-hmm. I think it's just another example of like Sony and EA trying to take advantage of gamers. Like when it's a company like OnLive that's trying to do it across all stuff, it's a little bit different. Like they don't really have a horse in the race. It's just their platform. But when it's like Sony doing it, of course they're going to tell EA, no, we don't want yours because you're competing with us if you do that. Then if you wanted to have both of these, you have to pay $50 for the PlayStation one and $50 for the EA one, or however much they are. Yeah. And at that point, well, damn, just go buy the games you want. Just truthfully, how much are you going to go back and replay out of those libraries? Probably not that much.
Well, okay, so let's hypothetical completely, right? Let's just say you're paying $30 for the EA one, right? And $30 for the PlayStation one. And then maybe, you could probably do more, but let's just say those are the only two. Well, that's $60 a month right there. Well, I don't even spend $60 a month right now on games. So.
I mean, like, an example of the PlayStation 1 Network one is that F1 2013, so not even the newest F1 game, you could rent it for 4 hours for $6.99, 7 days for $11.99, 30 days for $22.99, or 90 days for $50. $6.99 for a 4-hour rental?
Yeah.
That's so stupid. I remember when you could go rent games for $2.
I was going to say, not even Blockbuster would be stupid enough to do that.
I know. And is it like you said before, is it 4 hours from the moment I start playing or 4 hours from the moment I bought it and download it? Because then how long is it going to take for me to get it to where I can play it? It's just something, I really feel like it's one of these things where it's these companies are just trying to find another way to milk money out of people. What's the best way to do it and not basically, and still make tons of money. So, because, this is a little bit off topic, a little bit different, but, a couple weeks ago, it was announced that GameStop has a new credit card they're going to try to peddle.
Oof.
Yeah, well, first off, GameStop, ugh, and now credit card?
Well, GameStop, yes, that's one thing.
I used to manage one, so that company, the only time I shop there is if it's like, I need this right now, or this, I know they've got a deal going so good that I can basically just rack up stuff with it.
Right. No, just talking about the company and their practices in general could probably be its own episode, but the credit card, I remember when it first came out, people were just like, wait, what did you say the interest rate on that was?
Yeah, the interest rate is 26.99% APR. That's twice the current fixed rate for most credit cards and nearly twice the variable rate that they use.
It is literally more than twice the current rate of my credit card.
It's also according to this, 3 percentage points above the APR people with terrible credit get. So it's like, wow. Like someone did the math on it. If you bought a $60 game, like this month from GameStop, and you're going to pay that back over a year, then you would end up paying, and you're only paying the minimum, it would take you more than 8 years to pay off of that $720. And you'd shell out about $1,914 in interest.
Oh, crap. That is... I really think the reason that they released also, because not long after that, they released their whole, this is how we're planning on overhauling, Game Exchange to get you guys more money. And I really think they did that so that it could do damage control on the whole credit card thing.
That sounds about right. That's how GameStop operates, is damage control. It's just like, throw it out there. Bad idea. Damage control. Control.
Did that not work? Did they notice that we put that giant interest rate there? Let's do something to fix that.
Yeah, I mean it's a very retroactive company. It's just poorly managed. It always has been.
Also, since you brought it up, GameStop themselves actually purchased a digital games company not too long ago,
That's how if you download digital games through them, you get them is through that.
Yeah, to actually, hopefully, battle stuff like on live and stuff like that. And I'm not familiar enough with that to know if it's worked for them or hasn't really worked for them. But this is something this is going to happen. We are going to see games move to digital. We are going to see more subscription-based stuff. It's kind of going to happen, and I don't think there's anything we can really do to stop that from happening.
Well, things like Steam really put digital downloads for games at the top of people's attention because there's so many of these platforms to do that now. It's not just them. There's a couple other ones like EA has their own, of course. Ubisoft has their own.
Uplay is the bane of most gamers' existence.
It's so terrible, but even outside these major companies, there's other small ones. Like I think there's one called GOG.
Yeah, Good Old Games.
Good Old Games. That's what it stood for. Yeah.
And they're building their own app basically to what Steam is. They're going to have their own. Right now they're just a website, but that you can download games from. But they're about to have their own interactive app like Steam is. And then also Green Man Gaming, I believe, is the other one that's kind of doing something similar.
See, and this is my problem with that type of stuff. It's my same problem with having Netflix and Hulu and all these different streaming services. It's like, as long as I can get a game on whatever one I want, I'm okay. But the moment they start going exclusive to where it's like, oh no, you can only get that game on this platform.
Yep.
Oh God, I got to go download a whole another one that I don't want to deal with. Thanks.
I had to download Origin and Uplay. I mean, Uplay is forced on you. Origin, at least, you could be like, oh, there are other ways around it. But
yeah.
But I had to download Origin because of a Humble Bundle, and they've improved it. They've improved it a lot. Origin is nowhere near as bad as when it first launched, but I agree with you. It's still like, I don't want all three of these on my computer. I don't need three of these. I shouldn't need three of these.
Yep, I agree completely. That's why I think I downloaded Origins to play one game, and the moment I was done, uninstalled it, got it off, didn't look back. And then I decided I just didn't need to play any EA games anymore on my computer. It's just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. In Ubisoft, I'm sorry, again, a little bit of a side note, but Uplay, one of the reasons it's bad is Uplay requires a lot of you, especially if they fixed this, but it used to be if you paused certain games in Uplay, it was an extra second. It was just a second. But every time you unpaused it, it wanted to make sure you weren't pirating the game, so it did a check. And so it was like pausing and unpausing actually caused it to take longer to play the game.
Oh my God.
And Ubisoft is really bad. They have a specific company that does their ports, and I don't remember the name of the company. But their PC ports are bad.
And they should feel bad.
And they honestly, like, I have a computer that can run, what is that recent game? BioShock Infinite. Mm-hmm. And it can make it look pretty good. It looks good on here. But when I tried to run Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I was having so many problems getting that game to run. And I looked it up, and it's probably not your computer. It's just that Uplay is so resource heavy, and then the way the port is, it just makes it harder for your computer to run. And that makes me not want to play Ubisoft games on my computer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. I know a lot of people who purposely refuse to play EA games or Ubisoft games because of that. Like, it's just not worth the trouble it puts your computer through to do it.
Right.
And I mean, that's how I am. Like I said, I don't think I've played any of those for a while. After the last one, I had to download Uplay, and it was just, I have to remember a special password to sign in just to play this game because you want me to have this thing that really serves no purpose.
Right.
Other than just something on there. But yeah, it's these types of, going back to the streaming stuff, everybody having their own one of these is just disastrous because it just screws with the consumer. It doesn't benefit anybody.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I want to download this game, so I got to get this subscription service through EA and download this thing to play it, and I need to get this subscription service through Sony to download and play this, and then I need to get this app to download and play this. So I've got like 47 subscription services going, and I'll be a nickel and dime to death over here because you don't have time to play all the games on any of them.
Right. Here's the other thing: we are seriously about to see a kind of a paradigm shift in gaming. We probably have one more console generation where you're actually going to have a physical console box. And past that, it's either going to be something simple you plug into your TV or a complete download something, whatever. And whenever you have these big shifts in, you know, gaming and in other stuff, people are like, companies are like, oh, well, how do we make the most amount of money and make sure we're not losing money? And so they're going to be hitting all this stuff pretty hard in the beginning, and it's going to take companies realizing it's like, oh, we can still make money through other ways, or we can still survive off of this amount of money before they're ever going to try to actually start lowering those prices or giving us more for our money.
Yeah, it's one of these things, like, as long as they can make money doing it, they're going to keep putting out these boxes, though. I mean, like, they'll do what they did this generation, where they barely make any real differences in the systems, and they'll just sell them for more money, so they can still convince people, oh, you need to buy this new one, and blah, 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 blah. When they should have waited a couple more years so they could really have made something that was dramatically different.
Sure.
So, but they knew people were getting antsy and wanted new systems for whatever reason, which I don't understand that either. Why is it like, oh my God, I've owned the system for 10 years. I want to spend $700 on another one that's not that different.
Right. Buying a new system to me is like, I don't know. Some of these people are so worried about performance. They're so worried about graphics and, like, I'm sorry, did you see the story about the guy who's suing Sony for Killzone Shadowfall, I believe is the name of the game? Because they said that it was running in 1080p or whatever, and what they actually did is it doesn't run in natural 1080p. They use a lot of tricks to make it run in 1080p. And so he's suing them for like $5 million or something like that. And I was like, that's just stupid. I really hope a judge throws that out.
Yeah. Well, that's another problem too of stuff. People, once they know there's money or something somewhere like that, they can start suing people for it. They're going to start doing it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, there you go. There's your depressing discussion about video games for the week.
We had this whole
idea.
idea.
The state of the market.
We had this whole idea to talk about something positive video games, and then we scrapped that. So
yeah, that's kind of my fault. I was like, no, let's talk about this instead. And it's just like depression over.
My good positive video game news for the week, for this week, past 2 weeks, was that we're getting the Resident Evil HD remake, and it's nothing great. They're just really porting the one from GameCube, but they're making it HD and they're adding some stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Shrug. I hate that. I hate remakes. To me, it's just kind of like, we really need some money. We know you already bought this game, but here you go. We're going to make it look prettier. Buy it again, sucker.
If you want a good remake, and it's an actual remake, not just a HD remaster or whatever, they just came out with Abe's Odyssey, Fresh and Tasty, or Good and Tasty. Have you heard about this?
I was never an Abe's fan.
Okay. If you played the original, every review I've seen is really good. Almost all of them talk about how they didn't just reskin the game and redo the voiceovers and all that. They took the game and made it practically into a new game, but it's still the same game in the sense that that the levels are the same essentially, but they've added new secrets and they've made the controls way more dynamic. The boss fights are different. They've done a lot to it. So if you want a good remake, go check that out.
Yeah, stuff like that, I mean, I guess that's okay. I still would rather see what they would do with a new Abe's Odyssey or a new Abe's game, but whatever. I mean, if that's the best you're going to get, that's the best you're going to get. But, fair enough. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. We had some happy discussion of an amazing movie, and then we just rounded it out with depressing video games talk.
I tried to bring it back. I tried to lift this back
and
up, but it didn't work.
I kicked it down. I slapped it back down. Volleyball spiked it in your face, and so I don't want to hear that.
Kyle, that's
video
Kyle
games are only about being depressed, damn it. Nowadays, at least. It's just the industry is just so disgusting at this point. I hate even being a part of it at any moment.
Yeah, because of what I do, I like to keep up with the news, but sometimes it's just more depression.
Yeah, it's I could either read this depressing news, or I could go read some depressing news about, wars. Well, at least the wars, that's real news. Maybe I should keep up with that.
The last couple of weeks really have been in video games, have been this game got pushed back, and this guy left this company.
Yeah, and it's all, really who cares stuff. But anyways, well, if you want to send us any questions or stories or things you want us to talk about, you can email us at comicsandcontrollers@gmail.com.
We would actually like to know how much you would be willing to pay for one of these services if it had a good selection of games.
Yeah, or what would you like to see in a service? How would you like it to work? Do you think it would work? That'd be interesting. Just let us know. Send us an email and we'll talk about it more. We might get some people who have some really good ideas, probably better than the ones that these other companies have, at least.
That's true.
All right, so until next time, I'm Kyle.
I'm Steven.
Y'all have a good one.